A well-known businessman named Eduardo Lima was accustomed to the hectic routine of his business. His mansion, a refuge of luxury and peace, was maintained by a dedicated staff, including gardeners who cared for the vast, immaculate gardens. Eduardo had an encounter that would change his life forever during an ordinary day on the property. Something caught his attention as he passed by the youngest gardener. The young man wore a moon-shaped pendant while concentrating on his tasks. Eduardo stopped abruptly, and his heart exploded. That pendant was familiar to him. It was the same one his son used to wear long ago before he disappeared. He was overwhelmed by a flood of feelings and painful memories. His son Lucas mysteriously disappeared when he was only 3 years old. It was an ordinarily sunny and calm day. Lucas was taken to the park by Eduardo and his wife, Helena. Lucas held tightly to the moon-shaped pendant, a special gift from Eduardo to represent their eternal bond, while he played. However, Lucas vanished in an instant. Eduardo and Helena searched desperately for him, but it seemed as if he had disappeared into thin air. Eduardo never stopped feeling the pain of the loss. He and Helena conducted an endless search, hired detectives, distributed photos and information, but they found no clear clues. The only thing that remained was the memory of Lucas's smile and the moon-shaped pendant. Although Eduardo kept a glimmer of hope, the cruel truth emerged over time. Eduardo was shocked when he saw the pendant around the young gardener's neck. That pendant was an exact replica. He couldn't let this go unnoticed. Eduardo felt a mixture of hope and anxiety when he decided he needed to know more about the gardener. He approached, trying to hide his agitated voice. "Good morning," Eduardo said, trying to act casually. "The pendant you're wearing caught my eye. It's very beautiful. Where did you get it?" Surprised by his employer's approach, the young gardener looked at the pendant and then at Eduardo. "Oh, this necklace. Sir, I've always had it. I found it when I was a boy at the orphanage where I grew up." The gardener's words shocked Eduardo. His mind began to form the idea that the young man could be his missing son. However, he was aware that he needed to be cautious. His judgment could be clouded by emotion. He needed evidence and precise answers. With a racing heart and determination, Eduardo thanked the gardener and walked away. He was aware that this couldn't have been a coincidence. Everything, including the orphanage and the pendant, was absolutely perfect. He needed to conduct a more comprehensive investigation. Eduardo kept a close eye on the young gardener. Every movement and gesture was an attempt to discover a familiar trait. Although the resemblance between the young man and the few memories he had of Lucas was notable, Eduardo knew his mind might be playing tricks on him. Before allowing hope to turn into certainty, he needed concrete proof. Deep down, Eduardo believed he was doing the right thing. His determination grew stronger every day. He couldn't miss this opportunity. He needed to know everything about the young gardener and perhaps finally reunite his family. The mystery was just beginning, and Eduardo was prepared to deal with whatever came his way. Felipe was always aware that his past was a mystery. He was raised in an orphanage and didn't remember his parents or how he ended up there. The only memory of his previous life was a moon-shaped pendant he always carried with him. The orphanage caregivers said he was found alone in a park, clutching the pendant tightly. Since then, that small item had been his talisman and a symbol of hope amid doubts. Life in the orphanage was tough. Felipe had to learn to be strong from an early age. The environment was harsh, and there were few resources. However, his determination impressed everyone. He worked hard, studied whenever he could, and helped with chores at the orphanage. He was a reserved but observant young man. His distant gaze often reflected his constant search for answers he couldn't find. At 18, Felipe felt the orphanage could no longer guarantee his future. He took the little he had, including the pendant, and set out into the world, determined to start anew. He faced many difficulties. He slept in shelters, did odd jobs on farms and restaurants, and went through moments when he nearly lost hope. However, the pendant continued to inspire him to keep going. After months of struggle, Felipe finally got a job as a gardener at Eduardo Lima's mansion. Although the position was humble, the mansion and its gardens conveyed a peace and beauty he had never experienced before. Determined to prove his worth, Felipe accepted the job with gratitude and determination. Felipe dedicated himself to studying every detail of gardening during his first days at the mansion. The gardens were vast and exquisite, and he was enchanted by the variety of plants and flowers that grew there. He woke up early every morning and worked until dusk, tending to the plants with a zeal that quickly became his trademark. Despite his efforts, Felipe was constantly criticized by Miguel, the stern house butler, who always seemed to find something wrong with his work. Miguel, a rigid middle-aged man, had no sympathy for Felipe. He treated him with disdain and distrust from the beginning. "Felipe, you need to improve your work," Miguel repeatedly said. "These bushes are a disgrace," without providing any useful guidance. Felipe, on the other hand, remained calm and focused on his tasks, determined not to be shaken by the criticism. One morning, while trimming the roses, Felipe saw a luxurious car enter the mansion. It was Eduardo Lima returning from one of his frequent business trips. Felipe had never seen his employer up close. Eduardo was an imposing man, but his austere posture contrasted with his kind and observant gaze. Ignoring Eduardo's curiosity, Felipe continued working. Time passed, and Felipe dedicated himself more and more to his work, always striving for excellence. Working at Eduardo Lima's mansion was more than just a job for him. It was an opportunity to start unraveling the mysteries of his past. Each plant he cared for, each flower that bloomed under his care, seemed to bring him a new life. Although Felipe was unaware, that moon-shaped pendant was about to change his life forever. Eduardo became intrigued by the object and the coincidences surrounding the young gardener and began to study him more closely. Eduardo's effort to uncover the truth about Felipe would mark the beginning of an exciting adventure, filled with obstacles and surprising revelations. Felipe's first days at Eduardo Lima's mansion were marked by anxiety, excitement, and determination. Felipe was amazed by the grandeur of the gardens when he opened the property gates. Majestic trees, well-trimmed bushes, and exotic flora formed a setting that seemed straight out of a fairy tale. He was aware that this place was entirely different from any other he had ever visited. The mansion's butler, Miguel, received Felipe upon his arrival. Miguel was a stern man with a deep gaze and a firm posture, capable of understanding people's spirits. Miguel said in a cold voice without even a smile, "I hope you know what you're doing." Felipe, determined to prove his strength, simply nodded confidently. He knew he needed to earn everyone's respect there, starting with Miguel. Felipe soon began working. He meticulously studied the gardens. He admired the beauty of the bushes and flowers that adorned the mansion's vibrant gardens. Day after day, he carefully tended to each plant, always seeking perfection. He saw each day of work as a chance to demonstrate his effort and worth. Despite his efforts, Felipe was constantly criticized by Miguel. The young gardener seemed unable to satisfy the butler. Miguel always found something wrong with everything, from how he trimmed the plants to how he watered the flowers. Miguel, always ready to complain, asked, "Can't you do anything right?" However, Felipe remained focused on his tasks, with surprising patience and calm. He was determined to do his best. One morning, while working in a rose garden, Felipe saw an expensive car enter the mansion. It was Eduardo Lima, returning from one of his frequent business trips. Felipe had never seen his employer up close. Eduardo was an imposing man, but his austere posture contrasted with his kind and observant gaze. Ignoring Eduardo's curiosity, Felipe continued working. Felipe continued working diligently in the following days, always seeking perfection in everything he did. He knew that his work would speak for itself, and he hoped to earn Miguel's respect over time. Despite constant criticism, Felipe remained calm and focused on his tasks. The young gardener earned the admiration of other mansion employees because of his determination and dedication. A strong storm hit the area one afternoon. The mansion's gardens were devastated by heavy rain and winds, scattering leaves and branches. Determined to keep everything organized, Felipe worked tirelessly during the storm to minimize the damage to the garden. Miguel didn't miss the chance to criticize, watching from one of the mansion windows. "You can't even keep a garden organized during a storm. Unacceptable," Miguel shouted, overpowering the sound of the rain. Other employees, who were also trying to deal with the uncomfortable situation, stopped to watch the event. Felipe, soaked and exhausted, tried to find an explanation. "I'm doing my best, Mr. Lopez. Although the storm came unexpectedly, I'm working hard to recover everything." However, Miguel was unwilling to listen and continued to humiliate Felipe, criticizing every small detail. At that moment, Eduardo Lima unexpectedly returned from a business trip. Upon exiting his vehicle, he noticed the commotion in the garden and approached to observe what was happening. Eduardo firmly interrupted Miguel's speech and asked, "Miguel, what's going on here?" Surprised, Miguel tried to find an explanation. "Mr. Lima, I'm just ensuring that the garden is in perfect condition, but this gardener is doing a poor job." Eduardo looked at Felipe, who was doing his best under difficult circumstances. With a disapproving look, he turned to Miguel. "Miguel, I can't stand this kind of behavior. Everyone here puts in a lot of effort, especially in difficult circumstances like this. Felipe is doing a fantastic job and doesn't deserve to be treated this way." Impressed by Eduardo's stance, the other employees watched in silence. Miguel withdrew, muttering an apology. Relieved and grateful, Felipe thanked Eduardo. "Thank you, Mr. Lima. I deeply appreciate your defense." Eduardo placed a hand on Felipe's shoulder and smiled softly. "Felipe, keep doing a fantastic job. Mutual respect is essential, and we're all under pressure." From that day on, Felipe experienced a new source of motivation. He knew he would face difficulties, especially with Miguel, but he also knew that Eduardo would support him. This gave him the strength he needed to continue his work with dedication, determined to prove his worth and possibly learn more about his past. Felipe continued working with zeal and determination in the gardens of Eduardo Lima's mansion. He faced new obstacles every day, but his confidence in his abilities grew. However, he was aware that Eduardo often watched him, especially when he wore the moon pendant. Felipe became curious and nervous about this constant observation. One morning, while trimming roses, Eduardo approached Felipe. "Felipe, may I have a moment with you?" Eduardo asked in a kind tone. Felipe stopped what he was doing, wiped his hands on his pants, and turned to Eduardo. "Sure, Mr. Lima. How can I help you?" Eduardo pointed to the pendant Felipe often wore. "That pendant is beautiful and unique. Where did you get it?" Surprised, Felipe looked at the pendant. "I've always had it, sir. The caregivers at the orphanage where I grew up said they found me with it in a park when I was a child. I don't know its origin." Felipe's words struck Eduardo deeply. Hearing Felipe's story, he felt a strong emotional connection. Memories of the past began to surface over time, awakening long-buried feelings. Eduardo recalled the tragic episode when his son Lucas disappeared. The moon-shaped pendant was a unique gift he gave the boy. Eduardo took considerable time to process the information. He tried to remain calm and asked, "So, you said they found you in a park?" Felipe responded affirmatively. "They found me alone, without knowing anything about my parents. I only had this pendant." Eduardo remained silent for a moment as he pondered things. He remembered the sunny afternoon when Lucas disappeared, the panic that engulfed his family, and the feeling of helplessness that had consumed him ever since. "Felipe, I need to investigate that pendant," Eduardo said, trying to conceal his emotion. "Can I see it more closely?" Intrigued, Felipe removed the pendant and handed it to Eduardo. As he observed the object, Eduardo felt a wave of emotions wash over him. He knew he needed to learn more about Felipe and his story. Eduardo returned the pendant and said, "Felipe, I'm going to ask for your patience. There's something extremely important that needs to be examined. I promise I will provide answers soon." Still not fully understanding what was happening, Felipe nodded, trusting Eduardo. He felt that something significant was about to be revealed, something that could change his life forever. Eduardo returned to his office in the mansion with a heavy but resolute heart. He sat in his leather chair, closed his eyes, and let the memories overwhelm him. With painful intensity, images of his long-repressed past returned to his mind. He remembered the day Lucas disappeared, the ensuing despair, and the relentless search that never yielded results. Eduardo knew he needed to act immediately. It was evident that there was a strong resemblance between Felipe's story and Lucas's disappearance. He decided to begin a thorough investigation into the young gardener's background. He started by examining old documents to find any information that might link Felipe to his missing son. He paid close attention to every document that passed through his hands. The possibility that Felipe was his lost son was both exciting and terrifying for Eduardo. He knew that before revealing his suspicions to Felipe, he needed concrete proof. The last thing he wanted was to give the young gardener or himself false hope. A DNA test would be the most effective method for discovering the truth. Eduardo was determined to proceed, anxious and worried about what he might uncover. In the following days, Eduardo spent more time with Felipe. He found reasons to go to the garden, observe the young man's work, and then help him with some tasks. It became a routine for both of them to accompany Eduardo in the garden. Surprised, Felipe began to appreciate Eduardo's company, who always wanted to know more about gardening. One day, while observing a newly planted flower bed, Eduardo commented, "You have a special talent for this, Felipe." "Thank you, Mr. Lima. I've always loved taking care of plants." Felipe said shyly, "It's something that brings me peace." As they spent more time together, a special bond began to form between them. Eduardo was becoming increasingly close to Felipe, and the young gardener began to see Eduardo not just as an employer, but also as a mentor. They talked about life, work, and sometimes about dreams and hopes for the future. Eduardo was aware that he was getting closer to the truth. The connection Felipe had with his missing son was so strong it couldn't be ignored. He needed concrete evidence, and the DNA test would be the necessary tool to uncover the truth. Determined and prepared for the test, Eduardo began taking the first steps. Still unaware of the investigations, Felipe continued working in the mansion, oblivious that his past was about to be revealed. Eduardo Lima began a thorough investigation to uncover the truth about Felipe. His mind was always on Lucas, his lost son. He knew he needed to act cautiously to avoid raising unfounded suspicions and to protect both Felipe and his own emotional well-being. So he began gathering information carefully. The first thing Eduardo did was examine old documents from the orphanage where Felipe had grown up. After gaining access to the files, he spent hours reviewing the documents, searching for any information that might connect Felipe to his missing son. Although he found Felipe's admission record at the orphanage, there were few additional details. Felipe was found in a park without documents and with the moon-shaped pendant. That was all the caregivers knew. Eduardo realized he needed more help. He hired Ricardo Martins, a trusted private detective who had worked for him before. Together they reviewed the kidnapping case and examined details that might have been overlooked at the time. Ricardo began reviewing the missing persons records from the period when Lucas disappeared, trying to find a connection between the kidnapping and Felipe's appearance in the park. Meanwhile, Felipe continued working diligently in the mansion gardens. He was unaware of Eduardo's activities. For him, working was a way to find a sense of purpose and peace. It seemed that each plant he tended, each flower that bloomed, brought him new hope. His motivation was revitalized by Eduardo's supportive words after the incident with Miguel. During his investigation, Ricardo found Mr. Ramirez, a former police officer who had worked on the case of the child found in the park years ago. Eduardo met Ramirez at a nearby cafe. It was a mix of hope and fear. Eduardo was direct when the retired officer arrived. "Thank you for meeting me, Mr. Ramirez. I'm interested in getting more information about the boy found in the park years ago. I believe he might be my son." An elderly man with keen eyes, Ramirez looked at Eduardo with curiosity. "I remember that case well. It was one of the saddest experiences I had. The boy was scared and only had a moon-shaped pendant." Eduardo was startled by the description. "The boy, who is now a young man working for me, still has that pendant. It's imperative that I verify if he is indeed my son." Hearing Eduardo's urgency, Ramirez nodded. "I remember we made every effort to locate the boy's parents, but were unsuccessful. However, now that you mention it, I recall there was an abandoned car near the park. I always thought there was a connection." The pieces began to fit together. While Eduardo experienced a new surge of hope, he knew he needed concrete evidence. He and Ricardo began tracking all possible leads, visiting the park where Felipe was found, talking to people who lived there at the time, and reviewing hospital records from that period. At the same time, Felipe began to notice something different in the mansion. Although Eduardo continued to treat him with the same kindness, he seemed more thoughtful and distant. Felipe wondered what might be happening, but chose not to ask and focused on his duties. He had the impression that something significant was about to be revealed. Ricardo continued investigating and discovered a police report about an abandoned car near the park where Felipe was found. The report stated that there were signs of a struggle at the scene and that the car was registered to Eduardo Lima. Eduardo read the report with a pounding heart. "This is my vehicle. This is a clear indication of our proximity," he thought with a mix of anxiety and hope. "Felipe must be my son." Eduardo planned a DNA test to obtain definitive confirmation. He knew this would be the only way to ensure that Felipe was indeed his lost son. To avoid alarming the young man, he wanted to approach the matter cautiously. In the following days, Eduardo began spending more time with Felipe, observing him in a different light. Every action and expression reminded him of his little boy. Although the resemblance was undeniable, Eduardo knew that before revealing his suspicions to Felipe, he needed concrete evidence. Finally, the time came to talk to Felipe about the suspicions and the DNA test. Eduardo called Felipe for a meeting. Trying to conceal the emotion in his voice, Eduardo said, "Felipe, there's something very important I need to tell you." Surprised, Felipe said, "Sure, Mr. Lima. What is it?" Taking a deep breath before speaking, Eduardo began. "Since I saw your pendant, I've had the impression there might be a connection between us. I've been in touch with various people and gathered information that suggests you might be my missing son. My intention is to conduct a DNA test to be sure." Felipe was stunned and didn't know how to react. "Mr. Lima, this is really surprising. My past has always intrigued me, but I never imagined something like this." Eduardo smiled softly, placing a hand on Felipe's shoulder. "I understand this is difficult to process, but we need to know the truth. Let's do this test and find out definitively." The DNA test was conducted the next day. The wait for the results seemed endless. Felipe, Helena, and Eduardo experienced a storm of emotions as they dealt with their concerns and expectations. The day the results finally arrived, Eduardo felt the weight of the truth that was about to be revealed as he held the envelope in his hands. He opened the envelope and looked anxiously at Helena and Felipe. The confirmation they had been waiting for arrived. Felipe was indeed Eduardo and Helena's lost son. The room was filled with emotion. Tears of joy streamed down Helena's face as she hugged Felipe. Eduardo felt a mix of peace and joy he had never experienced before. The family was reunited as the truth was revealed. The next morning, Felipe awoke with a different feeling. Although the revelation of his true identity brought turmoil, he was determined to embrace his new life as the son of Eduardo and Helena Lima. He knew it would be a transition filled with challenges and opportunities, but also growth. Everyone involved was deeply moved when they learned that Felipe was indeed Eduardo and Helena Lima's lost son. The DNA test provided confirmation, removing all doubts. The truth was both a blessing and a shock to Felipe. He had spent his entire life without knowing his real family. Suddenly, he had parents who loved him and a new identity to embrace. Eduardo, Helena, and Felipe gathered in the mansion's living room on the day the DNA results arrived. Eduardo felt the tension of the moment as he held the envelope containing the results. Helena was beside him, holding his hand, and their hearts were filled with anxiety and hope. Although Felipe appeared calm, his eyes reflected the turmoil within him. As Eduardo opened the envelope, he took a deep breath. "The results are here," he said, his voice slightly trembling. He read the words and discovered his suspicions were correct. "Felipe, you are our son. You are Lucas." Helena broke into tears of joy as she quickly embraced Felipe. "My son, my dear son," she repeated, holding him tightly. Felipe, in turn, was in a storm of emotions. Although he had always desired more information about his past, the magnitude of the revelation was overwhelming. He looked at Eduardo and Helena, seeing them as his parents and employers. In a choked voice, he said, "This is a lot to process. but I'm glad to finally know the truth. Thank you for never giving up on finding me." The Lima family began adapting to the new situation in the following days. Eduardo and Helena wanted Felipe to feel at home and gave him all the support he needed. They talked for long hours about the past, recalling memories of Lucas and explaining what had happened after he disappeared. Felipe listened attentively, absorbing every detail. Eduardo's main goal was to ensure Felipe felt loved and accepted. He spent more time with Felipe, showing him photos and telling stories from his childhood. Smiling, Eduardo said, "You were always a curious boy. I remember you loved playing in the garden. Maybe that's why you have such an exceptional talent for gardening." These stories inspired Felipe to feel a stronger connection with his parents. He allowed himself to experience the joy of having a family who loved and cared for him. Helena, in turn, began cooking his favorite meals, trying to create a warm and welcoming atmosphere. "I want you to know we always have time for you," she declared, "no matter what happens." However, the adaptation came with some challenges. Felipe had to deal with the shift in his identity and the new responsibilities that came with joining the Lima family. He continued working in the gardens, but Eduardo advised him to start studying the family business. "There's a lot you can do here," Eduardo said. "I want you to get involved and experience what it's like to work with us." Felipe accepted the challenge with determination. He began attending meetings and learning about the family's businesses. His parents guided him patiently, teaching him everything they knew. "You have a natural talent," Eduardo said with pride. "I'm eager to see your progress." One constant challenge for Felipe as he adapted to his new life was the mansion's butler, Miguel. Miguel never got over the fact that Eduardo had defended Felipe in the garden and now saw him promoted to a respectable position in the company. His anger grew, and he began conspiring against Felipe, trying to ruin his reputation and create conflicts within the company. One day, Miguel entered the office where Felipe was reviewing important documents, wearing an expression of false friendliness. "Felipe, you seem very busy. Do you need help? Perhaps I can assist you in understanding how things work here." Unsuspecting of Miguel's intentions, Felipe accepted the offer. "Yes, Miguel. Any help is appreciated. I'm trying to understand these financial reports, but there are still some points I don't get." Miguel took the opportunity to give false and misleading advice, trying to incite errors that could harm Felipe. However, thanks to his dedication and intelligence, Felipe managed to identify the issues and correct the mistakes before they caused any real damage. Eduardo noticed the increasing tension and called Felipe for a conversation. "I've noticed Miguel trying to interfere with your work, Felipe. I want you to know I have complete confidence in you and your abilities. Don't let him get to you." Felipe thanked Eduardo for his support and decided to confront Miguel directly. "Miguel, I'm aware you've been trying to undermine me. I'm here to learn and work hard, not to cause trouble. I hope we can collaborate." Surprised by Felipe's courage, Miguel had to back down, at least for the time being, but his anger only grew, and he continued looking for ways to bring Felipe down. Despite the challenges, Felipe continued excelling in the company, attending important meetings, presenting innovative ideas, and gaining the trust of his colleagues. Eduardo and Helena watched with great pride as Felipe progressed. They knew he was on the right path to becoming a competent and honest leader, capable of taking the family business to new heights. While the confirmation that Felipe was Eduardo and Helena's lost son brought great relief, it also opened the door to new challenges. Everyone awaited the DNA test results with great anticipation. As the days passed slowly, the Lima family experienced a storm of emotions. Eduardo tried to stay busy with business, but his mind frequently returned to the moment he would see the results. He and Helena spent hours talking about their fears and hopes, trying to prepare for any possible outcome. One night, Helena asked in a trembling voice, "What if it's not true? What if we're fooling ourselves?" Eduardo held her in his arms, trying to comfort her. "Helena, we have to have faith. Whatever the result, we'll face it together." Felipe also felt anxious about the wait. He continued working in the gardens, but his past weighed on his mind. He often wondered, what does this mean for me? How will I adapt to this new life if I really am their son? Although he tried to remain calm and follow his routine, it seemed that each day brought more questions than answers. The day the results finally arrived, Eduardo felt the weight of the truth that was about to be revealed as he held the envelope in his hands. The silence filled the space between him, Helena, and Felipe in the living room. "Felipe, you are our son," Eduardo declared with an emotional voice after opening the envelope with trembling hands and reading the words that confirmed his suspicions. The room exploded with joy. Tears flowed freely as Helena hugged Felipe. "My son, my dear son," she repeated, holding him tightly. Eduardo felt a mix of contentment and relief. The family was reunited as the truth was revealed. Felipe, in turn, felt a strong sense of belonging as his true identity was unveiled. The Lima family began adapting to the new situation in the following days. Eduardo and Helena did everything to make Felipe feel at home. They spent hours talking about the past, memories of Lucas and what happened after he disappeared. Felipe listened attentively, absorbing every detail. As he understood how much they had suffered and fought to find him, he began to feel a deeper connection with his parents. Eduardo wanted Felipe not to feel pressured to adapt quickly. "You have all the time you need," he said to Felipe. "We want you to feel comfortable and know we're here to support you." Helena cooked his favorite meals and did everything to make him feel part of the family. "We're so happy to have you back," she said. "We'll always have time for you, no matter what happens." Despite being grateful for the support, Felipe knew that adapting would be difficult. He had to deal with the change in his identity and the new responsibilities that came with joining the Lima family. He continued working in the gardens, but Eduardo advised him to start studying the family business. "There's a lot you can do here," Eduardo said. "I want you to get involved and experience what it's like to work with us." Felipe accepted the challenge with determination. He began attending meetings and learning about the family's businesses. His parents guided him patiently, teaching him everything they knew. "You have a natural talent," Eduardo said with pride. "I'm eager to see your progress." One constant challenge for Felipe as he adapted to his new life was the mansion's butler, Miguel. Miguel never got over the fact that Eduardo had defended Felipe in the garden, and now saw him promoted to a respectable position in the company. His anger grew, and he began conspiring against Felipe, trying to ruin his reputation and create conflicts within the company. One day, Miguel entered the office where Felipe was reviewing important documents, wearing an expression of false friendliness. "Felipe, you seem very busy. Do you need help? Perhaps I can assist you in understanding how things work here." Unsuspecting of Miguel's intentions, Felipe accepted the offer. "Yes, Miguel. Any help is appreciated. I'm trying to understand these financial reports, but there are still some points I don't get." Miguel took the opportunity to give false and misleading advice, trying to incite errors that could harm Felipe. However, thanks to his dedication and intelligence, Felipe managed to identify the issues and correct the mistakes before they caused any real damage. Eduardo noticed the increasing tension and called Felipe for a conversation. "I've noticed Miguel trying to interfere with your work, Felipe. I want you to know I have complete confidence in you and your abilities. Don't let him get to you." Felipe thanked Eduardo for his support and decided to confront Miguel directly. "Miguel, I'm aware you've been trying to undermine me. I'm here to learn and work hard, not to cause trouble. I hope we can collaborate." Surprised by Felipe's courage, Miguel had to back down, at least for the time being. But his anger only grew, and he continued looking for ways to bring Felipe down. Despite the challenges, Felipe continued excelling in the company, attending important meetings, presenting innovative ideas, and gaining the trust of his colleagues. Eduardo and Helena watched with great pride as Felipe progressed. They knew he was on the right path to becoming a competent and honest leader, capable of taking the family business to new heights. Felipe began to adapt to his new life as Eduardo and Helena Lima's son, after being recognized as such. Felipe encountered many challenges and opportunities during the adaptation process, but he was determined to integrate fully into his new family and play a significant role in the family business. Eduardo and Helena made every effort to facilitate the transition, Felipe became involved in all family events, such as dinners and business meetings. During one dinner, Eduardo said, "Felipe, we want you to know you're part of this family. We'll stand by you, no matter how long it takes." Felipe was eager to learn more about the business and make a meaningful contribution. He studied financial reports and attended strategic meetings. His intelligence and determination shone through immediately, despite initially feeling a bit lost. "You're doing very well," Helena said proudly. "Take your time. Everything will fall into place." In the early months, Felipe had to deal with challenges imposed by the mansion's butler, Miguel. Miguel never accepted Felipe well and did everything to diminish his confidence and reputation. However, Felipe managed to overcome these challenges with courage and resilience, thanks to Eduardo and Helena's support. One day, Felipe decided to confront Miguel directly. "Miguel, I know you've been trying to make my life difficult since I got here," Felipe said firmly. "But I'm here to learn and grow, not cause trouble. I hope we can work together harmoniously." Surprised by Felipe's courage, Miguel's anger only grew. Every day at the company presented Felipe with a new opportunity to learn and grow. He excelled in various areas, demonstrating exceptional talent for innovation and marketing strategies. "You have a natural instinct for business," Eduardo said during a meeting. "Your leadership and ideas are impressive." Felipe began to gain the respect and trust of his colleagues. By presenting creative solutions and effective plans, he infused new energy into the company. "Felipe, you truly have a bright future here," one senior executive commented. "It's a pleasure to have you with us." Despite Miguel's constant efforts to sabotage him, Felipe remained focused and continued to impress with his work. Seeing Miguel's persistent attempts to cause trouble, Eduardo made a decision. "Miguel, we need to talk," Eduardo said during a private meeting. "Your conduct is causing harm not just to Felipe but to the entire team. This cannot continue." Miguel tried to resist, but Eduardo was determined. "You're dismissed," he said firmly. "You're not contributing to the harmonious work environment we need." The mansion and company felt better with Miguel's departure. The employees, who had been impacted by him, began working together more cohesively and with less conflict. With Miguel out of the way, Felipe could fully focus on his responsibilities and personal and professional growth. He continued excelling in the company, attending crucial meetings, contributing new ideas, and solidifying his position as a respected and capable leader. Eduardo and Helena watched with great pride as Felipe grew. They knew he was on the right path to becoming an honest and experienced leader who could take the family business to new heights. Outside of work, Felipe began building stronger bonds with his family. He spent more time with Eduardo and Helena, talking about family history and sharing memorable experiences. "I'm very happy to finally know my family," Felipe said one night during dinner. "This is a dream come true." "We're equally happy to have you back," Eduardo replied enthusiastically. "We always hoped to find you one day, and now that it's happened, we want to cherish every moment. You've brought joy back into our lives, Felipe," Helena said, tears in her eyes. "We're so proud of you." Over time, Felipe began to feel more comfortable in his new role. As an active member, he made significant contributions to the company's growth and success. His relationship with Eduardo and Helena deepened, creating a solid foundation of love and mutual respect. With the support of his parents, Felipe initiated innovative projects that took the company to new heights. By introducing new technologies and creative marketing strategies, he increased sales and customer satisfaction. "You have an incredible vision," a director said during a meeting. "We look forward to seeing your further contributions to the company." Felipe saw a bright future ahead. Although he knew there was much to learn with Eduardo and Helena's support, he became more confident in his abilities and potential for growth. "I'm ready to face any challenge," he told Eduardo. "I know I can achieve great things with you by my side." Eduardo smiled proudly. "Felipe, we're in this together. You've shown you're a great leader, and you have a promising future. You and the company are in good hands. We're so glad to have you in our lives," Helena said. "You've brought new energy to our family." Felipe felt grateful for all the opportunities and challenges he encountered as the Lima family grew and prospered. He knew his story was just the beginning of an incredible journey, and he was determined to make the most of every moment to honor his family's legacy and create a bright future. After confirming he was Eduardo and Helena's son and gaining full acceptance from his parents, Felipe Lima was ready to face the future with confidence and determination. He now had a strong and loving connection with his parents, Eduardo and Helena, and an important role in the family business. The adversity he had faced in life had shaped him into a capable and innovative leader. Felipe's first significant demonstration in his new role at the company was leading a strategic expansion project. Eduardo had full confidence in Felipe's abilities and tasked him with developing and executing a plan to expand the company into new markets. "This is your moment, Felipe," Eduardo said, handing him the project details. "Show us what you can do." With the support of a dedicated team, Felipe dove into the project. He conducted thorough research, examined the market, and crafted a comprehensive strategy for growth. Every decision was made carefully and based on reliable data. "We want to ensure our expansion is sustainable and successful," Felipe explained during a team meeting. "Every step must be meticulously planned." While working on the project, Felipe also focused on strengthening family ties. He spent quality time with Eduardo and Helena, sharing stories and creating new memories. "I'm so happy to finally have a family," Felipe said during a family dinner. "This is a dream come true." "We're equally happy to have you back," Eduardo replied enthusiastically. "We always hoped to find you one day, and now that it's happened, we want to cherish every moment." "You've brought joy back into our lives, Felipe," Helena said, tears in her eyes. "We're so proud of you." As the expansion project progressed, Felipe demonstrated his exceptional leadership and strategic vision. He successfully coordinated the team, ensuring all employees aligned with the project's goals. "Felipe, you truly have a talent for this," one of the directors said. "Your leadership is inspiring." After months of effort, the expansion project was finally completed. The results exceeded expectations, allowing the company to grow significantly and enter new markets. Proud of his son, Eduardo organized a celebration to honor Felipe and the team's success. "Felipe, you've proven to be an incredible leader," Eduardo said during the celebration. "We're all so proud of you." Emotional, Felipe expressed his gratitude to everyone for their support and trust. "This is just the beginning," he said. "With all your support, I know we can achieve even more." The celebration was marked by a sense of accomplishment, laughter, and lively conversations. More united than ever, the Lima family was ready to face any challenge the future might bring. The absence of Miguel created a new sense of peace and balance in the mansion. Knowing Felipe was a fair and understanding leader, the employees worked with more enthusiasm and less tension. "He truly cares about all of us," one gardener commented. "It's a pleasure to work here." Over time, Felipe continued to improve his position in the company and create new projects. He focused on increasing customer satisfaction, implemented sustainability programs, and invested in innovative technologies. "We want to be leaders not only in our industry but also in social and environmental responsibility," Felipe said during a presentation. Eduardo and Helena watched with great pride as Felipe progressed. They knew they had found not only their son but also a leader capable of taking the company to new heights. "You've brought new energy and vision to the company," Eduardo said. "We're so grateful to have you here." Throughout his new life, Felipe reflected on his journey. He had come a long way from his difficult days at the orphanage to becoming an integral part of the Lima family. "I'm grateful for every experience I've had," he thought. "They've shaped me into who I am today." With the unwavering support of Eduardo and Helena, Felipe was ready to face any future challenges. He knew that with dedication, love, and hard work, anything was possible. The Lima family, now united, looked to the future with hope and optimism, knowing they could overcome any adversity together. Thus, Felipe continued on his path, finding strength and meaning in his new identity. He knew there were many new things to discover and challenges ahead, but he was ready to face them with determination and faith. The company thrived under his leadership, and the mansion, once a symbol of sadness and loss, now shone with joy and love. As Felipe walked through the company's corridors with a firm and determined posture, the golden morning light illuminated the mansion. He had overcome many obstacles and was prepared to take on all the responsibilities entrusted to him. Eduardo and Helena watched with great pride as Felipe progressed. They were confident he was on the right path to becoming an honest and capable leader. Felipe was just beginning his journey, and with his family's support, he was determined to build a bright future. Every step he took was supported by the love and strength of a united family. Together, they were ready to face any challenge fate might present.